Hi, I'm Mike, and this is Riding in the Ozarks. Harley-Davidson dropped their Q1 financials a couple of weeks ago, and there is something you need to know that nobody is talking about. I've been sitting in on the Harley-Davidson financial calls for a few years now, not just poring over the slides and the reports, but actually listening to the statements from the analysts and everyone else. I found something really interesting in the last call that we're going to discuss, and I have gotten some information that nobody is talking about that's not in the call. Mid-year last year, I was seeing a trend that really concerned me about revenue versus sales. And I want to know at the end of this video if you think Harley-Davidson is screwing customers and hurting the Harley-Davidson brand in the long term. A lot of people thought Harley-Davidson announced these CVO 2023 models when they did because information leaked out of Australia. Well, that information always leaks out of Australia first after they make those filings down there. So I'm sure Harley-Davidson knew that was coming. Do you really think it was a coincidence that Harley-Davidson announced this stuff about the CVOs right before, and I mean literally just a day or two before the financial call? It's what we call smoke and mirrors. We want you to look over here. Let's talk about this. This was just announced. Let's not look too close at this. And I think that's what's going on. So let's get into it. I've got 4 things that we need to look at and talk about. 1, revenue. Now it's important to know when you look at these slides and they talk about revenue, that's not revenue from me and you. That's revenue from delivering bikes to dealerships. Harley-Davidson's customer is the dealerships. It's not us. We're the ultimate retail consumer, but their revenue comes from delivering bikes to dealerships, not from retail sales. They do give some retail sales numbers out, and we will discuss those, but those are reported back by the dealerships. When we talk revenue, that's what they're getting from the dealership. Also, these slides generally refer to previous year. So Q1 of 2023 will be referring to previous year Q1 of 2022. But I am going to also look at Q4 of 2022. I think it's important to look at how things are trending from last quarter to this quarter, not just how this quarter compares to the previous year's quarter. So for 2023, revenue is at $1.8 billion. That's up 20% from previous year. Now remember, I said that, 20% from the previous year. Q4 2022 was $1.14 billion. $600,000 were up in revenue from last quarter. Let's look into that and see how we got there. And that is going to take us to number 2, sales. So in the slides, Harley-Davidson just talks about retail sales. And if you look here, you'll see that retail sales are down. We are down 17% from last year for North America, 12% worldwide. Market share has shrunk in every category except for US large cruiser share, and it only went up by 1% there. You notice they only give us shares for Europe and America. Don't know what Latin America is, but we took a big hit in Latin America, down 25% last quarter. Now these are just percents compared to previous year or previous quarters, so it's really hard to understand what these mean. We're going to take a look at the actual raw numbers for sales and shipments. So retail sales in the first quarter of 2023 was 39.4 thousand motorcycles worldwide. Retail sales last quarter were 33.8 thousand worldwide. We're up about 6,000 units, and most of that was in North America. Everything else was pretty flat. So if retail sales were only up 6,000 units, which in this case is approximately 30%, how did we get a 50% increase in profit? Well, let's look at the shipments. 2023 Q1, Harley-Davidson shipped 62,000 motorcycles. In Q4 of 2022, they shipped 34,000 motorcycles. That's nearly double. And if we look here on the revenue line, we will see for motorcycles, revenue in Q4 was $666 million. Revenue for Q1 of 2023 was $1.3 billion. That's about $600,000, which is about what the increase in revenue was. So Harley-Davidson's increase in revenue this quarter versus previous quarter was simply from shipping more motorcycles to dealers. That's who they sell to. So now the dealers have more inventory on the floor, which is demonstrated in this slide here. We have 45,000 units in dealer inventory at the end of Q1 2023. Q4, we had 36,000 units. So we're actually up 9,000 units in inventory, and we shipped an extra 6,000. So inventory went up on its own because sales were down, and then we added more to it. Now, Harley-Davidson's going to say that they're building up inventory for demand as we head into the riding season. And maybe that's a little bit true. Last year, there was some complaints about production not keeping up. We had a plant shut down, things like that. So maybe they're trying to stack the inventory a little bit early this year, but sales are not trending the same way. Sales are not trending up. So we're putting more inventory out there even though sales are down. Now, what happened to this whole thing during COVID when Jochen Zeitz first took over about how we were going to build demand by managing inventory and not having a surplus so the dealers didn't have to negotiate and cut on price and everybody would stay at MSRP or higher on pricing. Real quick, I want to jump back over here and show you where the sales numbers for everything else sit. Parts and accessories was 168 million. That's up from 151. That is really the only category that's kind of up for the rest of this. Apparel is down a little bit, licensing is down, other is down significantly, yet gross margin is at 35% versus 26%. Now, several videos have had thumbnails out talking about the repo man, so that takes us to item number 3, credit loss. Credit loss is at 3.2% for Q1 of 2023. It was at 1.9% last quarter. That's like a 68% increase. So I did a little research. The auto industry is up overall also, but they're up about 25%. But you think about this. Okay, credit loss is up for motorcycles. Auto industry is up 25%. Do you think we sell more cars or more motorcycles in the United States? It's a hell of a lot more automobiles. Only a small percentage of people ride motorcycles here in the US. So that 25% of the auto industry is a lot more units than the motorcycles are. What do you think it's easier to repossess? A motorcycle locked in some guy's garage? A car sitting in the parking lot where he works? So a lot of people may not realize, but during COVID, there were actually some regulations passed and it hurt the repo industry. Some people got out of it. They couldn't repossess vehicles as easily or were allowed to. So we lost some people working in that industry, and Harley liked to say in the call that the repossession market was soft. Well, I don't know what soft means other than, you couldn't get people to go repo the bikes. They're hard to repo to begin with. And if they can go repo cars easier than go get bikes, that's what they're going to do. And there's a demand for cars. I did some research on this, and basically the repo market is booming and they can't hire enough people to get the job done because there's such a demand. And that goes back to lenders allowing people who are maybe high risk to have loans for campers and four-wheelers and motorcycles and everything else during COVID when there was extra money coming in that now those people can't afford and they're defaulting on the loans. And now the repo man is out there working his ass off trying to collect all these items that people have defaulted on. And motorcycles aren't going to be easy to do. So I get it, but you want to blame the repo market, maybe you should be looking at your lending practices as well. Now we're going to get into item number 4. This item is not in the slide exactly, but I want to show you something that's related. And I talked about it at the end of the financial year for 2022 in the video I did there, and it's about how much money Harley-Davidson makes per unit. So they made $3,500 per unit at the end of 2022. Expected to be around a little more than that maybe this year. It's hard to say, they don't put a number on, but it looks to me like $3,600, $3,700 per unit. How did they get there? How are they making more money per unit? Well, some people, when I talked about this before, said maybe Harley-Davidson is, cutting costs, finding ways to be more efficient, things like that. It really comes down to this slide here where they talk about how they made more revenue in the HDMC part. HDMC revenue, excluding Livewire, comes from volume and pricing mainly. Selling more bikes to the dealerships and pricing. Now, I always assumed this pricing was referred to retail pricing, but from what I hear, it's not. So we've all seen these articles about, Rossmeyer selling out to an auto group, Black Hills Harley-Davidson selling out to an auto group. The Honda dealer near me sold out to an automotive group. A Harley dealer near me recently sold out to another family that is a multi-dealer ownership family. We're seeing this trend everywhere. The mom and pop, one or two owned dealership getting out of the business, and these auto groups are coming in, or these groups that are coming in that own 6 or 7 dealerships. Why are these guys selling out? Well, because Harley Davidson's cutting their margin. We all want to see Harley Davidson come out with a more affordable entry-level bike instead of a $14,000 Sportster. There's no $10,000 Sportsters anymore. Well, the dealerships can't cut the price on the nicers because they don't have any margin on them. People are complaining about dealers charging over MSRP. Well, Harley Davidson's cut the margins on some of the bikes, so for them to make the money they used to make on that model, they now have to charge over MSRP. And I'm not saying that's right. Harley Davidson thinks MSRP is the right place to be on those. But if you own the business and you were used to making $2,000 on this motorcycle, and now you can only make $1,000 if you sell it at MSRP, wouldn't you be tempted to still try and get your $2,000 margin that you're used to, that you need to make to cover your operating expenses as a dealership because that's what you're accustomed to? I don't have all the answers here. And I'm glad that I have a dealer in my area that still charges MSRP. But from what I understand, Harley Davidson is charging dealerships more for fees, for like the Riding Academy, things like that. They've cut the margins on motorcycles, on parts and accessories, on apparel. So they're squeezing the dealerships, who are in turn squeezing us. So I want to know, what do you guys think after hearing all this? Do you think Harley Davidson is screwing the customers, or is this just good business for stockholders? And do you think it'll hurt the brand long term if these trends continue? All right, guys, I'm getting ready to go to the Mid-America Freedom Rally. Hopefully I get this video up before I leave town. If I don't respond to your comment right away, that's probably because I'm busy working at the rally. Y'all stay safe, keep on riding, and we'll see you in the next one. I'm out.